I think what we need to answer for folks right now, though, is what is so special about Earthbound? Like that's a really hard question to answer.
Yeah.
But what is so special about this game, and why did it sort of, communicate itself to us in this way that made us really passionate about it?
Reed,
you go first, John. That's I got to think about this a little bit.
I mean, John has a lot of fan fiction about this very subject.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, for Earthbound, when I got to play initially, I think it was my first RPG I ever played. I never really got into the Final Fantasy and other RPGs, but with this one here, I really was able to connect with it because of this current modern day setting. But when I played it and I got to enjoy the characters, enjoy the story, and all the different kind of music, my dad was a person who introduced me to a lot of different genres of music, and I never really stuck to one. He's just like, I want you to hear them all out. And Earthbound, I really felt had a very broad spectrum of different music styles, and so that was one very attractive. But when I played the game and I beat it, to me, it felt like it was a story that transcended that medium. That it was something that, by chance, it is a game, but it's something that's not a game. So people ask me, like, what's your favorite book? It's like, well, my favorite story is Earthbound. It's like, oh, what's that? I haven't heard of that. I haven't read that. It's like, well, actually, it's a video game. People are like, oh. And they would immediately discount it. But to me, over the years, it's all about the experience that I had and the story that Earthbound told and the characters that lived within that world. And that, for me, defined itself as an overall set of memories. And that, and all the characters and the music and the setting and how I can personally relate to it because of its current modern day setting was what really solidified it for me. And being a video game was just a medium. It wasn't exactly a negative, but for a lot of people it was. And I'm glad a lot of people have come around to see it as more than just being a video game, but being something, a great tale.
Yeah, the contemporary setting, I think, specifically spoke to a lot of people because you were very used to RPGs or games presented in a fantastic way. You know, like the Mushroom Kingdom, and dragons and Hyrule. And,
I think that's what it was for me for sure because I played Earthbound not anywhere near launch probably. I played it probably at least a year late. Cause and the reason I got it was because like I didn't get very many games, and it's like when I got a game, like especially in the SNES era, like I would play it to death. Like I would max out every game I had because it's like I really only got like maybe 3 games a year.
Same here.
And so, but I ended up getting Earthbound weirdly because it's such a weird walk. But I swear I'll make it quick. I had all these Ninja Turtle action figures I had collected, there was this summer where I was like, I'm a grown up. I'm gonna get rid of all these, and I like
next stage
didn't
of
you
growth.
Just do this recently when you?
That's true. I have my semi-annual toy purge. But no, I got rid of like these Ninja Turtle figures, and my dad like put an ad in the newspaper or something. It was something weird because I had like a crazy collection. Because what I did was like, it probably was a penny saver. Like I at school would like trade for all of these turtle figures all the time, constantly, and like I was like mowing lawns and doing like whatever, and I would always like on Fridays, like my mom would like go to the bank or whatever, and I would like stop by. There's a place called Farmore, which is like a pharmacy in Pennsylvania, and they sold toys, so I'd buy Ninja Turtle toys. Anyway. I sold a bunch of them, and I had like, it was probably like $40 or something. Like wasn't a lot of money, but like to me, I was like, oh my god, I'm super rich. And we went to Funkoland, and they had a used which is so funny now because it's like it would be worth like $500 or whatever. Right. But they had a used big box Earthbound like with everything in it for like $40 or whatever it was, and so I bought it, and like that was like I used all of my money on it, and it was like I got so into it, and I think it was the contemporary setting because like at the time I had played like. Well, Final Fantasy 6, like it's Final Fantasy 3 at the time, and Chrono Trigger were like my big 2. Those were like things I was like obsessed with, and then Link to the Past. And so by the time I got Earthbound, it was like the first time I'd ever related to a character in a game. Number one, because they were kids, and number two, because of the contemporary setting. Like I just like was so invested in that story because it's like such an interesting.
Yeah, it relates
like,
a lot to
like
it.
It's that hero's journey thing, I guess. Like it's not like it's like so unique as like an archetype or anything, but. I just like cared about them and I laughed. That was the first time a video game ever made me laugh. And it's like just everything about it. When I finished it for the first time, I was like, that was amazing. Like that just like immediately like hit me. And I think I like immediately started over and played it again. And
it's a good spectrum of emotions because like you can laugh, you can kind of get emotional, you can kind of think about a lot of the aspects in the game, such as corrupt politicians, and what about that lady outside of the hotel in 3? What does that mean? Later you kind of grow up.
Like youthful confusion there.
Yeah, it's like you kind of grow up and like, wait a second, that that you refer to it back in retrospect. So there's a lot of those.
It's so fun. Like when it came to Wii U, I replayed it, and like some of the jokes in there, I was like, "Wow, I definitely did not understand that when I was a kid."
Yeah, no, it's all part of a wonderful localization effort by a friend of the show, Marcus Lindblom, who, when we met, I feel was around the first time that he started sort of being comfortable telling folks he had worked on that game. And just a little more context before Reed gets into sort of his reasons for why Earthbound is so special. This was a game, made in Japan by a Japanese copywriter, was the main writer on the game, Shigesato Itoi, who initially there was an NES game that did not come here.
Very close to becoming here.
Very close to coming here. It was localized at Nintendo. You've probably heard this story before. We're going to give you the synopsis anyway. The Super Nintendo version was the official first time Earthbound had come to the West, and it in a lot of ways it was a do-over, where the first game it had its own unique foursome that went out on an adventure. This one felt a lot more polished. This one wasn't as difficult. The first game was brutally hard to play. And so you had all these factors. You had a really cool soundtrack. One of the contributors being Hip Tanaka, who is a genius, and a developer called Ape, who then slowly transitioned and turned into something else entirely years later.
Yeah, I think Ape became...
Creatures.
Yep.
Yes.
And they were involved with like Pokemon and all these other things, right?
Yeah.
Ash is actually a technical spiritual successor to NES. So
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with Ape, I just found this out recently. Apparently, the president of Nintendo at the time said, "Hey, we need to start thinking of games as a storytelling medium." And not just like Tetris or Centipede or whatever. Like this needs to be a way to convey stories. And they started Ape with that intention. And then he brought on Itoi because they wanted someone who could tell a story, and that was his job.
Yeah, and that's how I felt like so attached to it, because it was a different tale rather than just this standard video game.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's really.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the game is it's a weird game, and that's like the fact that it's a story about America told by someone who had never been to America. Like it was kind of Uncanny Valley in a way, and I loved it. Like it was just really odd. It's like, who would just the way it parodied like politicians and police. It just it was just you could tell it was someone who kind of like had kind of the same reason The Room. That weird movie that no one understands where did that come from? Like, it's just it's like clearly made by someone who doesn't have the same perspective as you, but you're looking at the same thing and you can tell. And I think that's kind of what makes Earthbound so attractive, is that it's just a different way to look at things, But
yeah, it's such a unique world, and it's funny because like world building is hard in games even now when you have like these like crazy like photorealistic, like 3D gigantic open worlds. But it's like then like going from city to city, like each one feels unique, and it doesn't just feel like it's like a palette swap. It doesn't just feel like it's like, oh, like I've been playing through Pokemon Yellow on Virtual Console. It's like I love the original Pokemon games, but it's so funny to me that like it literally changes colors as you go to each like different town and fight each gym, but they're all basically the same.
Right.
Whereas in Earthbound, it's like such a crazy feeling of like, this is like Tucson is so different than like Winters, or like so different from like Moonside, or like any like of the environments in that game like have such a cool, unique feeling. And it's like I would walk away like remembering them. And like when I did find someone who had also played that game, like it was so easy to talk about a place, and they're not like, oh, is that the pink one or the red one? It's like, no, that's the incredible, like, different area.
No,
like,
totally. Yeah, and for anyone who's listening who hasn't played, I assure you we're trying to avoid spoilers, clearly, just for you. But I have to tell you, as someone who finally played this game for the first time in 2011, that, and I had to do it not by legal means, because at the time it was not available anywhere. I'm outing myself here. Yeah, but it's available for you now. I will say that it holds up incredibly well. Like my whole method to approaching that game was, I'm going to play this without any like guides or help. I want to see if this game can point me to the next thing in an elegant way, because sometimes with older games it isn't quite as clear, right? Like we're talking about an era though where like masterpieces like Chrono Trigger came out, which absolutely have stood the test of time. But I wasn't sure about Earthbound because I didn't know anything about it at the time.
Actually, when Earthbound was originally released in '95 with the big box, they put in the manual because of I believe target testing.
Yeah.
People thought it was too tough, so they had the manual automatically packed.
Yeah.
And so. How do you feel?
I feel like I was able to figure everything out. I think there's only one thing I ever got desperate and looked up. And everything else, and I can't remember what it was. I'm sorry. I wish I did. But it was somewhere in the first third of the game. But I felt like the entire tale was elegantly told. I was able to figure out everything I needed to do. And it was just incredibly charming. And it had this impact on me in a point in my life that was just really, really sort of traumatic, and it was something that a lot of things I was trying to cope with, and I felt like this game really helped me with that. And so I urge you, if you're listening to the show and you have never played this game before, you should absolutely do that. And coming to the new 3DS Virtual Console is a huge deal. This is cool. I know it's a 20-something-year-old game, and so you're like, well, why should I care? We're here to tell you should. Go ahead.
I was going to say really quickly it's weird because someone recently asked me. They were like, "Oh, I want to play Earthbound for the first time. Should I start with Earthbound Beginnings?" Nope, don't do that. That is the game they were talking about before, which was Mother in Japan. That was almost like a prototype for what Earthbound became. Do not play that game first. Definitely play Earthbound, and then if you're interested, maybe go back to that as sort of an interesting piece of history. But don't think of it as
like you're not missing a prequel.
Exactly. Yeah.